devotion, dedication. Also, you know, she's got, maybe she's too humble to say, too modest to say, but she's got a great fighting spirit, no doubt. She's a warrior, goes out there and, you know, doesn't give a single game. Actually, she has probably the most bagels of anyone in women's tennis. It speaks about how seriously and professionally she's taking every single point and game on the court. So that's very admirable. I really like that kind of champion spirit and mindset.
No, yeah, I would be lying to you if I said I had no reservations. Obviously, you guys know like who I am and the things I speak about, and I was pretty much on almost every player call that I could make.
Line, ready to serve. They don't need to cheer. No one's talking to you. She's talking to me, okay? I haven't started. Your team is chanting. I'm too old for this mind games, okay?
I haven't started. Your team is chanting. I'm too old for these mind games. That single line set off a firestorm. What should have been a routine exchange during a tense match quickly turned into one of the most talked about controversies on the WTA Tour this year. The dispute between Coco Gauff and Belinda Bencic didn't just stay on the court. It exploded across social media, divided fans, and sparked serious debate about sportsmanship, officiating, and gamesmanship at the highest level. What began as a seemingly minor disagreement escalated rapidly. Accusations were made. Tensions flared. And narratives started forming almost instantly. But then the story took an unexpected turn. The accusations against Coco Gauff began to fall apart. And now, one of the most respected voices in the history of tennis has stepped in. Novak Djokovic, the world's top-ranked player, a 24-time Grand Slam champion, someone who understands pressure, psychology, and on-court tactics better than almost anyone who has ever picked up a racket. Djokovic didn't hedge his words. He was clear, Coco Gauff did nothing wrong. According to Djokovic, Coco was not trying to manipulate the referee or gain an unfair advantage. She was doing what every elite competitor has the right to do, speaking up to ensure the match was being officiated fairly. In contrast, Djokovic suggested that Belinda Bencic's accusations crossed a line. Rather than addressing the situation calmly, Bencic attempted to frame Gauff's legitimate concerns as unsportsmanlike behavior, an accusation that simply didn't hold up under scrutiny. Djokovic went even further, stating that claims of Coco manipulating the umpire were completely unjustified. What this moment exposed wasn't misconduct from Gauff, but something far more familiar to elite athletes: mental games, subtle jabs, public accusations, attempts to disrupt rhythm and concentration during crucial moments. And Coco Gauff, she didn't bite. She stayed composed. She stayed professional. And she continued competing. Now, with Djokovic publicly backing her, the narrative has shifted, and the spotlight on this saga is brighter than ever. So what exactly was said on court? How did this exchange spiral into a full-blown controversy? And what does Djokovic's support mean for Coco Gauff moving forward? Let's break down the moment that started it all.
Responded, "There's nobody in the stadium. It's been so respectful. I treat your team with respect. We treat each other with respect. The ball was a drop shot when..."
Novak Djokovic's support for Coco Gauff was spot on, because when the dust settled, it was clear who had been unfairly targeted in this situation. And what followed next was nothing short of remarkable. Coco Gauff responded the only way champions do. She responded on the court. In front of a global audience, under intense scrutiny, Gauff went on to defeat Belinda Bencic, delivering a performance that showcased elite resilience, composure, and mental toughness. Even after dropping the first set, when Bencic looked confident and in control, Coco never panicked. She never lost focus. She never disengaged. Instead, she reset. As the match wore on, Gauff leaned into her preparation, her team, and her belief in herself, and completely flipped the script. With relentless intensity and clarity, she took control of the next two sets, raising her level and dictating play. The momentum shifted. The pressure reversed. And Bencic had no answers. It was a defining moment, one that reminded everyone watching not to underestimate the strength, discipline, and resolve of a young woman who refuses to be rattled. But Coco didn't stop there. After the match, she addressed the situation with honesty and maturity. She made it clear that she had never disrespected her opponent. At the same time, she didn't pretend the tension didn't exist. Gauff openly acknowledged that the situation affected her, because ignoring it would have been dishonest. She recognized exactly what was happening: attempts to disrupt rhythm, attempts to provoke frustration, attempts to gain a psychological edge. And instead of reacting emotionally, Coco absorbed it, processed it, and turned it into fuel. Her message afterward was simple but powerful. She stayed focused. She trusted her game. And in the end, she let her tennis do the talking. Coco Gauff didn't just win a match. She delivered a lesson in composure, resilience, and how to respond when pressure and controversy are at their highest. And once again, she proved why she belongs among the very best in the sport.
No, yeah, I would be lying to you if I said I had no reservations. Obviously, you guys know like who I am and the things I speak about, and I was pretty much on almost every player call that I could.
Coco Gauff's response, both on and off the court, was perfectly measured. She handled the situation with a level of maturity and composure that belies her age. Rather than escalating the tension, Coco made it clear she had no intention of speaking negatively about Belinda Bencic or her team. She emphasized respect, both given and expected, and made it known that while she holds her own team in the highest regard, respect in professional tennis must be mutual. Even in the face of pressure and negativity, Gauff chose the higher ground. She stayed composed. She protected her focus. And she kept her attention where it belonged, on the tennis. That approach is exactly what has allowed her to continue rising at the highest level of the sport. Novak Djokovic reinforced that point when he weighed in. According to Djokovic, nothing about Coco Gauff's actions was personal. They weren't aimed at an opponent, an umpire, or a team. They were the actions of a competitor, driven by a fierce desire to fight for every point and ensure fairness on the court. Djokovic described Coco as a warrior, a player who steps onto the court determined not to give an inch, a player who pushes her opponent to the limit through effort, intensity, and discipline, not through distractions or gamesmanship. In doing so, Djokovic effectively dismissed the claims made against her. Fighters like Coco Gauff, he suggested, don't rely on tactics off the court. Their focus is singular. Compete hard, play fair, and win through performance. At the end of the day, that's what defines Coco Gauff. Not the controversy, not the accusations, but her character, her professionalism, and her unwavering commitment to the game.
Devotion, dedication. Also, she's got, maybe she's too humble to say, too modest to say, but she's got a great fighting spirit, no doubt. She's a warrior, goes out there and, doesn't give a single game. Actually, she has probably the most bagels of anyone in women's tennis.
And Novak Djokovic's assessment rings true, because Coco Gauff has never been afraid to stand up for herself, even on the biggest stages. A clear example came during her US Open match against Laura Siegemund. As the match unfolded, tensions rose around a series of delayed and inconsistent calls that repeatedly interrupted Coco's rhythm. The stop-start nature of those decisions became a growing point of frustration, not just for Gauff but for many watching. Instead of quietly absorbing it, Coco addressed the situation directly. She confronted the chair umpire calmly but firmly, questioning the consistency of the rulings and asking for clarity. It wasn't about theatrics. It was about fairness. And it was about protecting the integrity of competition. Those delayed calls had a real impact on flow and momentum, something every professional player understands. But Coco refused to let that disruption silence her. What stood out was the response. Fans in the stadium rallied behind her. Commentators acknowledged the legitimacy of her concerns. Not because she was arguing but because she was advocating. Eventually, a violation was called on Siegemund after multiple similar incidents had gone unpenalized earlier in the match. Coco seized that moment to make a broader point. Rules matter, and they must be applied consistently, not selectively. She continued to press for accountability, not disrespectfully, but persistently, making it clear that she expected the same standards to apply to everyone on court. That moment sent a message. Coco Gauff will not be intimidated into silence. She will not accept inconsistency without question. And she will always demand fairness, no matter who stands across the net. After the match, emotions ran high, as they often do at the elite level. Siegmund expressed her disappointment publicly, offering her own perspective on the events. But for many observers, the defining image of that match wasn't the post-match reaction. It was Coco Gauff standing her ground in real time. Not disrespectful, not reckless, but composed, courageous, and unafraid to speak when something feels wrong. That's what people responded to. That's why the crowd supported her. And that's why Coco Gauff continues to earn respect, not just for how she plays, but for who she is under pressure. She competes fiercely. She demands fairness. And she refuses to be pushed aside. That consistency, of character as much as performance, is exactly what separates great players from champions.
I'm crying in a press conference. As a tennis player, you are a performer. You owe the people. You owe the kids that watch. And I'm just a bit, at the end of the day, I go home and I can look at myself and I can say, I did a great job.
In the middle of this controversy, Novak Djokovic once again showed why he's regarded as one of the greatest players in tennis history. Not just for what he's achieved, but for how clearly he sees the game. Rather than getting caught up in surface-level drama or emotionally charged narratives, Djokovic looked past the noise. He focused on substance, context, and fairness. While much of the conversation leaned into accusations and reactionary takes, Djokovic stayed grounded in what actually mattered. And his conclusion was clear. Coco Gauff was not the problem. In Djokovic's view, she was a competitor standing up for herself in a high-pressure environment. Someone whose actions were being mischaracterized once the narrative began to shift. His support wasn't blind loyalty. It was rooted in experience, perspective, and a deep understanding of how quickly situations on court can be misframed. By speaking out, Djokovic sent a powerful message. Not just about his respect for Coco as a player, but about his belief in fair treatment, consistency, and integrity within the sport. In an era where media cycles move fast and pressure can push people to choose sides prematurely, Djokovic refused to be swayed. He didn't amplify accusations. He didn't fuel conflict. He validated what he saw: a young athlete competing fiercely, asking for fairness, and being judged for it. That validation mattered. It reinforced that Coco's actions were driven by competitive spirit and principle. Not malice, not manipulation, and not disrespect. As a result, Coco Gauff emerged from the situation stronger. Her composure, resilience, and professionalism earning respect from fans and fellow players alike. At the same time, the spotlight has intensified on how moments like these are handled, and on the responsibility everyone shares in keeping competition fair and respectful. Ultimately, Djokovic's intervention reminded the tennis world of something fundamental. Truth matters. Context matters. And standing up for what's right, especially when it's uncomfortable, matters most of all. So now the conversation is yours. What do you think about Novak Djokovic's support for Coco Gauff? Do you believe his perspective helped clarify the situation? How do you view the way this controversy unfolded? And Coco's response both on and off the court? And more broadly, do moments like this highlight why athletes speaking up for fairness and respect still matters in modern sports? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with Djokovic? Or do you see it differently? Let's talk.